Good morning. I'll call this Tuesday, April 7th, 2020 meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I call the roll, I would like to note for the record that all 5 supervisors are participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by roll call vote. Additionally, before we begin, any members of the public that wish to provide oral testimony during today's meeting, please review the instructions posted on the Clerk of the Board's webpage at www.sandiegocountygov/telecomments, and that's TELECOMMENTS. With that, I will now call the roll. Supervisor Jacob?
Here.
Supervisor Gaspar? Supervisor Fletcher?
Here.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Here.
Chairman Cox?
Here.
And for the Housing Authority, I would note that due to the public health emergency, Tenant Commissioner Sandra Marsh and Tenant Commissioner Francisco Penalosa are absent.
And we'll go ahead and start our meeting this morning with an invocation, which I will give, and then our Vice Chairman Jim Desmond will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you today, continuing to seek your wisdom as we endeavor to serve San Diego County during this health crisis. Lord, this Board of Supervisors is so very grateful, not just for your outstanding county employees, but for our community partners in the private and nonprofit sectors as well. We pray for the heroes in our region, our brave first responders, our dedicated, skilled, and courageous healthcare workers, those who keep our facilities clean and safe, and those who continue to serve us in supermarkets and drugstores and gas stations, and so many other essential roles. Lord, keep us focused and mentally alert. Help us to overcome fatigue and the pressures that come from making decisions that affect so many lives. Give strength to our leaders in the federal and state governments, and especially with those at the highest levels of the medical expertise and decision-making who are working day and night to defeat this enemy. May we come out of this a stronger nation and a stronger county because we have collectively been faithful to your leading. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Now will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by our Vice Chairman, Jim Desmond.
Thank you very much. If you could join me, please, in our Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of
the
the United States of America, to the republic,
for which it stands,
one nation,
one under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Obviously, these are different times for us, and so because of the situation we have, we're welcoming public comment. I would want to point out before we get into the agenda items that any member of the public that wishes to speak on any item, we would ask you to please dial into the conference line when that item comes up for consideration. We have some problems at the last meeting because we had a backlog of people calling early, and it just kind of created a little bit more of a problem. So if you would wait until the item is identified by the clerk of the board and then call into the number that's been provided, we'll be more than happy to hear your comments at that time. The next item on our agenda is public communications. And I would acknowledge that we have a request from a total of 27 individuals to speak on non-agenda public agenda items. Now, 14 of those have been submitted in writing, and they're all identical to each other as far as the comments. And so what the clerk of the board will do is go ahead and read the very similar letters or identical letters, and identify the people that have put in those letters to us for non-agenda public comment. And then we will take 4 other non-agenda public speakers. And at the conclusion of the meeting, we'll pick up with the remaining non-agenda public speakers. In other words, we'll go ahead and deal with those 14 identical letters, 4 additional speakers, and then we'll go to the regular agenda and come back and pick up the last 8 non-agenda public comments at the end of the meeting. With that, could I ask the clerk to please go ahead and read the first set of letters that have come in?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the chairman noted, this comment was submitted by 14 people. The names are Candace Custodiotan, Misty Lazaraga, Cecile Estelle, Julia Brown, Zachary Farber, Jordan Mills, Abel Macias, Tamara Lambright, Willow Lark, Michaela Malone, John Craigie, Emma Zentz, Itzel Contreras, Bethlehem Desta. It reads, I am writing in support of the statement and demands in this document. The individuals provided a hyperlink that is available online. The BOS must support the statewide call to cancel all rents, mortgages for homeowners, small landlords, and small businesses for the duration of the pandemic with no accumulation of debt. Additionally, there must be action taken to protect homeless and undocumented San Diegans. Now is the time for drastic and radical action to protect working people. The next non-agenda public comment is from Julie Marks. It reads, cancel the rent. Homeowners have been given deferments to pay their mortgages. They will not lose their properties to banks due to non-payments. With that in mind, tenants are still expected to pay rents. If they are not evicted now, they will face eviction when this is over. And after having not worked in who knows how long, the city will be facing even bigger problems. Moreover, it is inhumane. Find your souls. The second comment is from Tamara Fanning. I support the cancellation of rents and mortgages with no accrual of debt for anyone during this crazy time. It's hard enough thinking about not getting the virus and to have to worry about going into debt at the same time is exhausting, speaking from experience. We got to stick together and get through this. This will be a great help for everyone, no matter their economic status. Thank you. Help all people feel safe and secure. The next non-agenda public comment is from Juliana Mushayev that reads, the eviction moratorium passed by the BOS does not adequately address the financial impact of COVID-19 and does little to help homeless and undocumented San Diegans. We ask you to support our statewide call to cancel rents and mortgages. This can take the form of a resolution and an official endorsement of our letter to Governor Gavin Newsom. The individual provided hyperlinks to 2 documents that are available online. The next comment is from Forrest Smith that reads, I'm writing today as a renter that got laid off from both of my jobs. I picked up my final check today and it doesn't even cover my rent. That's why I support the demands in this document. Again, provided a link to that document. Additionally, there must be action taken to protect homeless and undocumented San Diegans. Let us speak about how hard it is to live. We bail out banks and corporations. Where is our relief as workers? As the chairman noted, I'll read the remaining comments at the conclusion of the board's open session.
Thank you. We'll move on now to the approval of the statement of proceedings and the minutes for the regular meeting of March 24th, 2020 and the Housing Authority Board meeting of December 11th, 2019. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion by Supervisor Jacob, seconded by Supervisor Fletcher. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Okay, we'll move on to the formation of the consent calendar. All items on the agenda will be considered to be routine and will be acted on by one motion unless there is a desire on the part of the public or members of the board to pull items for further discussion. Let me ask the clerk if there's any items that have been pulled by the public.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 3 has been pulled by the public. Item 4 has been pulled by the public. Item 7 has been withdrawn. Item 19 are closed session matters that will be considered at the conclusion of the board's public session. All the remaining items on the Board of Supervisors agenda, as well as the County of San Diego Housing Authority, may be placed in the consent calendar for your board's consideration.
Okay, let me start off with Supervisor Jacob and ask her if she has any items that she would like to pull for further discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no other items and I would move approval of the consent agenda.
Very good. We'll move to Supervisor Gaspar. Do you have any comments or items to pull?
Thank you, Chairman. I have no items to pull. I'll second the motion.
Okay. Supervisor Fletcher?
I have no items to pull.
Okay, it's Vice Chairman Jim Desmond.
I have no items to pull. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Jacob, seconded by Supervisor Gaspar to approve the consent calendar. Would the clerk please identify those items that we'll be voting on?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board will be voting on all items except items 3 and 4 that will be for discussion. Item 7 withdrawn, and item 19 are closed session matters. That includes the items on the Housing Authority agenda.
Okay, we do have a motion by Supervisor Jacob, seconded by Supervisor Gaspar. If there's no further discussion, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll note for the record that with that motion, item 8 introduces an ordinance providing a procedure for fixing and collecting charges on the tax roll for permanent road division number 1000, zone number 1017, Calba, Haley, Taub Streets. Chairman Cox, your vote, please.
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob,
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar,
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Okay, the first action item that we will take is item number 3, which is establishing a behavioral health impact fund. This item was brought forward by myself and Supervisor Fletcher. Just a couple of introductory comments, and then I would note that we have, I believe, a couple of speakers on this item. I was very happy to announce this item at my State of the County address earlier this year. What I couldn't predict was that we would experience a crisis like COVID-19 in our community. In partnership with Supervisor Fletcher in the city of San Diego, we've proposed this behavioral health impact fund to support organizations that are on the front lines serving the most vulnerable members of our society. The spread of this virus has shocked our local healthcare system. Our community providers are inundated with calls and requests to care for those who are ill and those at risk of becoming ill. Down the road, we know that the outbreak will continue to adversely impact our behavioral health continuum of care. The people who will be most impacted by the crisis are the most vulnerable in our society, those with compromising behavioral health and physical health challenges. This board has continuously discussed the need to enhance our continuum of care for those struggling with mental health and substance abuse disorders. There is no better time to act than now to support people in crisis. And we know government can't do it alone. Supporting our community partners is critical to getting through this crisis and continuing to serve those in need into the future. Now I'd like to thank Supervisor Fletcher for his partnership on this item and ask him if he would like to say some additional comments.
Thank you, Chair Cox. Obviously, as a county, we've made substantial progress in trying to tackle the behavioral health challenges in front of us. This item really is a unique opportunity. It's a unique partnership where we had $25 million tied up in a dispute of a lawsuit between the city of San Diego and the county of San Diego. And the reality is, if either of our jurisdictions had that money, we ought to try and dedicate those funds to address the community care, the lack of community care in our behavioral health system. And so after extensive work with the city of San Diego, in particular Mayor Faulkner and the council, we came to an agreement to find an innovative solution to create this behavioral health impact fund. The way the fund would operate is essentially service providers who provide behavioral health services would be able to make a proposal for a one-time capital investment. So if they could buy a building, renovate a building, acquire a building, expand a building, and they can demonstrate that they have an ongoing revenue stream to support the services there, then we could make a one-time capital investment out of this one-time money that could substantially increase the availability of drug treatment services, of mental health services into our community. I would just add that in the crisis that we're in now, the relative impact of this fund, I think, is considerably greater. You know, a lot of these are things where maybe there's an opportunity to acquire a motel. Those opportunities are exponentially greater today than they ever have been, with a lot of places assessing the viability of how long they'll be at zero occupancy and how long it might take for tourism to recover. A lot of independent motel operations out there, I think might be more interested than they had been in the past in potentially selling their building. And so this would give our service providers the opportunity to go into a market, to assess what's out there, to put a proposal in, city would sign off, county would sign off, the one-time investment would be made, and it would really help us build out all the charts that we've talked about flipping the pyramid from emergency care to community care. This is a way to help bring on those community level care. And I know we have a lot of service providers that have weighed in on how valuable this could be in helping increase the service. And so I appreciate Chair Cox bringing this letter forward. I want to say a special thank you to Mayor Faulkner. We started conversations about this many months ago. A special thank you to the City Council at the City of San Diego, which has already approved this. And with if our action is successful today, this is the final step to get some much needed funds out of litigation and onto the street to provide real help and care to folks who need it most.
Mr. Chairman, I would invite the public to call in that wish to speak on this item to dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you, and you'll be muted until it's your turn to speak.
Okay, and it's my understanding that we have two people already that wanted to provide public comment on this.
We're just waiting on them to call in at this moment.
Okay, let me ask if my colleagues have any questions at this time before we hear the callers.
I have a question.
Supervisor Desmond?
Yes, I'm curious. I mean, I'm supportive of the item, but I'm curious is, about the projects that this could potentially be spent on. The city would sign off and the county would sign off, I heard. I'm just curious, who is it? The Board of Supervisors are going to be signing off on whatever the project or whatever this money might be spent on, and who at the city is going to be signing off? What makes up that, if there's a body or something like that that's going to be approving how this money is spent?
Chairman Cox, Supervisor Desmond, the way that the agreement is written, the city and the county each choose a representative, and those representatives are responsible for approving any projects. The representative from the city is selected by the mayor, and the representative from the county is selected by the chief administrative officer. And since the funding since the funding would be already appropriated, there would not be a need to come back to the board for approval of any of the projects that would be agreed to in the agreement.
So I guess, do we put any parameters on these dollars at all? Or, yeah, I heard mention, hotels and things like that it might go towards, but I'm just, I'm a bit concerned that two people have the ability to spend $25 million without other oversight.
Yes, Supervisor Desmond, there are criteria that are established in the agreement that is before your board that lays out what would be the requirements, that they have to be a capital project, that it has to be supporting the continuum of care. It also talks about the fact that the entity that would be receiving the money has to be able to provide those services for 5 years, has to have a separate and sustainable funding source. A number of criteria that are established that would have to be met in order for the two representatives to be able to approve the project. So it wouldn't be carte blanche as far as those two representatives are concerned.
Pages 2 and 3 of the agreement list out the in-depth series of criteria that the projects need to meet.
And clearly there would be a lot of input and direction from our behavioral health director, Dr. Luke Bergman.
Chairman, I wanted to follow up if I could. I'm not sure if Supervisor Desmond's finished with that comment, but as a follow-up to that, I would feel much more comfortable. I'm supportive of this overall. I think it will have some positive investment back in the community in an area that's critical right now. My comfort level would be that it's okay to have those two appointees, one from the county, one from the city. I'm okay with that, but I think that the proposed projects should come back before the board for a final stamp off for approval on the county side, on the city side. I think it's really important. No one person should have the ability to spend $25 million, and that's effectively what happens. The criteria is presented there, but criteria is broad, and I think that's okay because it doesn't exclude projects from coming through. And so I think we should keep it that way. But at the same time, there needs to be some better oversight. It's $25 million. It's a lot of money. And I think a final stamp off from the county would be a good thing. So my recommendation would be that we just make a modification that this review committee of 2 bring back their recommendations to the full board. And then you have an elected body saying, okay, we understand it's met all of the criteria and we're good, comfortable moving forward with those projects. So I would just like to throw that out as a modification. And at that point, you could have my support.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure, Supervisor Jacob.
Yes, I'd like to ask our CAO and also County Council. So in the normal process, when the county would be putting out an RFP in order to solicit those organizations that would qualify to participate in this $25 million. And what my question is, would the same process be followed in this case with both the city and the county involved? And perhaps digging a little deeper into the exact process that would be followed in the with the 25 million, maybe more appropriate just to have reports back to the board so we can make sure that we're monitoring the expenditures on that. So if I could get a little more detail on the process that would be followed under the criteria that's listed in our board action, that might be helpful.
Supervisor Jacob, this is Tom. The process would be very similar to what is currently done in your NRP program. It would not be a NOFA, it would not be an RFP or an RFI type of a process. It would be much more akin to what you do on your NRP program, where folks who are interested in receiving some of the funding would submit applications. Those applications would be reviewed, and then they would be submitted, and they'd be reviewed by the county's staff to make sure that they satisfy the criteria that are laid out in the agreement. And then if they, any of those that do satisfy the criteria would then be provided to the 2 representatives who would then make the decision based upon those applications that were submitted. So it would not be like the more formalized NOFA type process.
So with the 2 individuals that would be appointed, the appointment would come on the county side from the CAO, is that correct?
That is correct.
And Helen, what is your intent? Would that be, who would that be?
The intent of this would be, I would be in consultation with Dr. Luke Bergman to determine who on his staff, or whether it's himself, that would be most appropriate to fulfill the county slot on that selection.
And then is the plan also to provide regular reports to the board on who's getting the money and how that's going to be allocated and what it's going to be used for?
Supervisor Jacob, yes, we could certainly do that on a regular basis with every application that was either denied or determined to be feasible.
As one board member, that process is acceptable to me. I understand the questions that have been raised by my 2 colleagues, but I think that as long as we get regular reports and we can monitor the situation, which I believe is our role, is to monitor the expenditure of the 25 million to make sure that we're providing the oversight to make sure that the criteria is being upheld by those that are appointed respectively by the city and the county to deal with this. I think it's also important, particularly as the chairman said, in the times that we're in, let's get this money out on the street. Let's get it into the hands of those organizations that are prepared and ready to go and set up space and do the job that we need so badly, especially right now with COVID-19 crisis that we're in.
Mr. Chair, if I can just second that, I think we have some very strict parameters laid out for what would be an eligible project. We routinely, as a county, allow our staff to execute on those in the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars without each individual one coming back to us. I would also add that in the agreement with the city, it's that the city would dedicate a rep, the county would dedicate a rep. I have full faith in Helen Robbins Myers and Dr. Bergman in terms of their ability to do this. If we were to force a change, it would essentially be undoing the agreement we've already reached. It would go back to the city. Undoubtedly, the city council would then want to sign off on every single one of those. And with their multiple committee processes and their bifurcated legislative and executive form of government, we could essentially be ensuring that we would miss the opportunity to seize available assets that are out there now. And so I think reporting back to the board, I think regular updates to the board is appropriate, but I think if we were to try and change we have a very lengthy and comprehensive process for how these funds can be spent and how they can be determined. And again, I would echo Supervisor Jacob comment that, you know, we have a good staff, we have a good team, and I think regular updates back to the board will allow us to get this out and get it moving and have it provide the greatest return on investment that we can do now.
I would also point out to the board that there is a requirement in the contract that we'll be reporting twice a year to the city. We would then just provide that same report to the Board of Supervisors as well.
We could also certainly do it more often than that.
And we can certainly do it more often
And in
than
light of the
that.
conversation, I would pledge to do that at whatever level of frequency you would determine necessary.
I would think, Mr. Chairman, I would think at least quarterly.
Why don't we go ahead and hear the one speaker I think that we have on the line waiting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would note for the record that we have received 2 e-comments on this item, and we have 1 caller on the line to address the board. And as a reminder for the callers, if there are any additional callers on the line that do not wish to speak on this item, hang up and call back when the board begins discussion on the next item. We'll be identifying the caller by the last 4 digits of the phone number. We did have 1 individual that expressed interest in calling in that has not yet called in, so we'll go ahead and call her name. I'll turn it over to Erin to identify the first caller.
Yes, thank you. If Amy Spear would still like to address the board on item number 3, please call in at this time using the instructions you were provided when you submitted your request to speak. Again, Amy Spear, if you would like to address the board on item number 3, please call in at this time. Now we'll go to Warsan Arton with last 4 digits 5715. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, County Supervisors. I hope you're all doing well at this time. My name is Warsan Arton, and I am with Youth Will. I believe that every person has a right to comprehensive and holistic health care, including mental health and behavioral health. Our community is in dire need of mental health resources, and this fund will give us an opportunity to put our community first and provide needed resources, especially at this critical time. As a youth organizer, the importance of mental health and access to mental health resources is emphasized by our youth again and again. There are young people who, when they're faced with mental health crises, do not know where to turn to. It is time that we value our mental health resources and mental health as much as we value our physical health, especially during this COVID-19 crisis. I agree with Supervisor Cox when he says that a mental health crisis is in abundance for our youth, and that we need to establish this fund. And there's no better time to establish this fund. This is why I support the establishment of mental health, the establishment of a behavioral health impact fund. This fund will provide mental health resources for our community who need it, and rehabilitation to community members who are facing substance abuse. This is why I'm asking you all to support the Behavioral Health Impact Fund. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you for your call, and we do not have any other callers on the line at this point.
Okay, we have the item before us. I would move for approval of the item as presented.
Second.
I just have a comment.
A second. Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you very much. And I'm in favor of this. this money going towards mental health, and I think rightfully this is what we do. Remember that, criteria that was sent out. We sent out for proposals, asking people to come in with those proposals, and then the Board of Supervisors would approve what was proposed. I don't remember already reaching an agreement and we're like undoing an agreement. I don't remember voting on an agreement prior. I guess I just think, for this amount of money, it should probably just come back to the Board of Supervisors for an approval. So, I agree with, the money going and being spent on behavioral health in the city of San Diego. I just think the money should come back, it should come back to the Board of Supervisors for an approval. And, that's, I don't think, going to hold anything up that long for a period of time. So I'm not going to be supporting it as it's recommended, but for us to approve anything of this amount of dollars instead of giving that authority.
Yeah, I would just point out that this is an agreement that was negotiated between our county council and the city attorney in the city of San Diego. My understanding is the city of San Diego has already approved this document as it is written. And again, I think our goal is to get moving on this as quickly as we can. Because of the COVID-19 crisis we're in, I suspect that there's going to be a lot of opportunities to purchase perhaps hotels that are going to be going under because of the fact that they don't have people coming into them. And I really think we need the ability to allow our staff to make the decisions in consultation with the city of San Diego. Again, these are funds that are subject to litigation that we don't even know whether ultimately these are our funds. And this would really be the first time I think the city of San Diego has ever committed any potential funding that they may have to behavioral health. I don't think we should lose any time. I think the criteria that is set up is very clear. I have full confidence in Dr. Bergman and Helen Robbins-Meyer that they would be able to evaluate and make recommendations. The bureaucracy of going back through two different governmental agencies, I have more confidence maybe in the county because we don't have a committee structure, but in the city of San Diego, they've got a committee structure that just means it takes sometimes months for items to get on their agenda for a full board consideration. So Supervisor Fletcher, did you want to make some comments too?
I have my hand raised, Chairman, when you have time.
Okay, I'll have you go after Supervisor Fletcher.
I would just echo that. We routinely, as a matter of policy, empower our staff to execute contracts. It is in large part the essence of the way the county works, and we don't have each of those individual contracts come back to the board for approval. And so I think our CAO has outlined a process by which the board can be routinely updated on each of these. And I think that between our behavioral health team and our CAO, I have confidence that they're going to sign off on projects that are in the county's interest. I would also point out that if we miss the opportunity to do this and we become overly bureaucratic in the ability to move swiftly, and we don't convey that sense of confidence in our excellent county staff to execute on this, we will miss the opportunity and we will miss the moment. Again, these are not funds that are the county's funds. These are not funds that are the city's funds. These are funds that are tied up in litigation and in lawsuit. And I just think that time is of the essence here. And again, the way we are doing this follows right in line with the way that we do the overwhelming and vast majority of our budget. And so I think the provisions that are outlined for what it can and can't be, I think the confidence in our staff to make simple evaluations, they make evaluations and projects on hundreds of millions of dollars all the time. This really is no different. The only thing that we would lose here would be the possibility of losing the entire fund. Because if we then have to go back to the city and say, well, we couldn't improve it as written, we got to sign off, then they're going to need to sign off, and then this is going to create an unwieldy situation. And I fear that we'll never arrive at the folks who need behavioral health services the most getting the help that they need. And so I would just ask us to trust our county staff that they are fully competent and can avail themselves of the ability to exercise reviewing proposals and spending up to $25 million in partnership with the city. And again, I appreciate our CAO providing more regular updates to the board on each of those projects as they are approved.
Hey, Supervisor Gaspar?
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if the raise hand thing is working or not. I've had mine up for quite a while. We have a great team. This is not about them. I have never questioned their abilities. They are fantastic. I don't question their abilities today. I am questioning how we got to this place. I think it's entirely inappropriate that we've gone out and negotiated an agreement. I have no idea where we had the authority to even do that. And then if we have a problem with it, we speak up and say, hey, I don't like something about this. And we say, well, you're slowing it down. Well, this should have come back before. I could have expressed these concerns before. Quite frankly, I don't care what the city does on their side. I don't care what their level of oversight is. I'm the county supervisor. I'm in charge of making sure that we have proper oversight for the expenditures of our taxpayers. 25 million is a lot of money. Sometimes we lose track of that, lose sight of that because we're managing billions of dollars. So from my perspective, at the very least, the county board needs to give their final stamp of approval. It's most likely that I will love the projects that come forward. How could I not? The criteria cannot be described as strict. Look at the criteria on the page. It's intentionally loose. It's intentionally broad. It's a good thing that a number of people can apply. I think that's wonderful. I have all of the faith and confidence in Dr. Luke on our staff. That's not the point. We have another government entity that's reviewing this as well. But at the end of the day, we are responsible for every tax dollar that goes out. And I think it's entirely reasonable that we as a county say that the 5 elected members who were put here to oversee these expenditures have a final look before it goes out. Because when our staff takes a look at it, all they're going to do is make sure that it's adhering to the very loose criteria that's on the page. So again, this has nothing to do with the capability of our team. I am a little fired up that we negotiated a contract that now you're telling me if I have anything to say about it, it's slowing you down. One final check back in with this board will not slow things down significantly. And you should have checked in with me before you negotiated a contract. So again, happy to support this fund. I support the fund in concept wholeheartedly, but please allow me to protect our taxpayers by having this final level of oversight.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to weigh in.
Supervisor Jacob?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm fired up too. I think something maybe a couple of my colleagues don't recognize, this is not our money. It was stated before. You stated it, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Fletcher. This is not county money. So it's a little unusual. And I think we should be applauding the efforts of the chairman and Supervisor Fletcher for working with the mayor and negotiating this deal. This $25 million is tied up in a lawsuit. I'm just going to remind the board. This is a 4-vote item. City Council, the mayor has already approved the criteria and how to disperse this money. If it was county money, I might agree with Supervisor Gasper on this. I might, even though it would be out of the norm in terms of our process. But in this case, I see it very, very differently. You set up the criteria, you get the money out the door. Because it's a 4-vote item, if we don't go forward today, my biggest fear is the city of San Diego is going to back out. Then we're back to the lawsuit, which could take months and months and months to determine that 25 million that's tied up that is in litigation over the city's share of this redevelopment money. So, I mean, I actually can't believe the hesitations of my colleagues on this. The accountability issue in my mind can be taken care of, a report back to the board, I would suggest on a quarterly basis. And a question I would have, which would perhaps put a little more comfort into this, that I have for Tom. Let's say we try this process that the city's already agreed to, and we're the holdouts at this point. Okay, so let's say we try it for a quarter, 1/4 of the year. 3 months, I think that is. Or is it 4 months, whatever. 3 months? 3 months will do. And okay, we get a report back to the board. And at that time, we take a look at what has happened and we don't like it. So at that point, could we make changes? That would be my question.
If you approve the action today, you will be entering into agreement with the city, and so you would be bound to follow what's in the agreement currently. The agreement does not contemplate any change as far as coming back to the board. That would be something that we would have to potentially renegotiate with the city. And so if in 3 months you found that there was a problem, you would then we'd need to determine whether or not the city would be willing to make that amendment. The amendments can be made in writing. So that would be my answer to that. It's not clear that you would be able to say we're going to change the process. You'd have to go back to the city and discuss that.
Well, couldn't we though reconsider our vote? I mean, I'm just trying to pick up another vote. I mean, realistically, we've got 25 million tied up now. We need 4 votes. And from what I've heard, we might not have them. And so then nobody gets the 25 million to spend at a time of crisis for behavioral health issues. That's the bottom line. We're going to lose it. So you want to talk about accountability? Let's talk about accountability right now. In terms of, are we going to just give up $25 million that could be spent on very important behavioral health issues or not? And I support the motion. I'd add to the motion the regular reports that come back to the board. And if we don't like it, I'm sure that we will have the intestinal fortitude in order to undo this agreement.
As Supervisor Jacob, the other thing I would mention is that that you would be able, after receiving a report, you would be able to provide direction to the CAO as far as who she has selected to make the decisions. There's nothing that would prohibit you from doing that, since you are able to give directions to the CAO.
Yeah, so I think the real question before us as a board, are we going to just give up $25 million that could be spent on behavioral health issues during this crisis or not? That's where we are. The agreement's done with the city. It's not done on our side. And I would say it would be a big, big mistake to give up $25 million, particularly as we're facing this crisis for behavioral health issues. So,
Supervisor Desmond?
Well, I guess I disagree with a couple of comments that Supervisor Jacob made. We're not going to lose this money. If we ask them to just come back to us for what the project is. And when we did this before in the South Bay, there was a specific project, these dollars, it was 25 million, again, went to. We're not doing this now. It's very broadly laid out what it could go to, and I'm fine with the criteria that it goes to. And this is nothing about distrust of the staff at all. I absolutely have total confidence in the staff for vetting these things. Just for $25 million, I think this needs to come back to us. And I also disagree that these aren't, our dollars, when this board has actually gone out and fought for these dollars and paid lawyers and attorneys to keep these dollars. So we're not going to lose this money if we decide to have this come back to us. And just tell the city, hey, we'd like to have this come back to the Board of Supervisors on this, whatever the specific project is that it goes to. And, at most that's 2 weeks maybe. And quite frankly, if you want to have a special meeting, I'd be happy to do that as well. So all I'm asking is that we come back and approve these dollars. We're not going to lose them in that period of time. And quite frankly, we fought for these dollars many times and through the courts, even in appeals. So I don't agree that we're going to lose these monies if we ask for that those approvals to come back to the Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chairman, I just make two comments to Supervisor Desmond's comments. One is we lost at the trial court level. This is on appeal. And our chances of winning, who knows, since we lost at the trial court level on this money. And if the appellate court upholds that, or wherever it goes beyond that, then the city gets the money. They can spend it any way they want. They don't have to spend it on behavioral health services. That's point number one. Point number two, the request to have these contracts come back to the board really breaks precedent in how we deal with contracts on everything else in the county. If you want to do that, I think you're potentially politicizing the process. Also, I believe from what I've heard that it would take an amendment to the agreement that had been reached, and the city may well back out of the whole deal. So that's all I have to say on this. I think I've said enough, but I think it would be an absolute disgrace to give up this deal.
I would just echo Supervisor Jacob's comment. If we miss this opportunity, it is a disgrace, and it is frankly an unprecedented thing that for $25 million with clear parameters, we would tell our staff that they need to come back for each and every contract. If somebody puts in a request for $20,000 to expand capacity in a building to provide more services, we're going to vote on every single individual one of these. We don't do that on any part of our budgetary process at all. We give direction to our staff. We give guidance to our staff. We hold our staff accountable. And we trust them to do their job. And this is a break from the entire way that we do our entire budget process. I will be interested to see when we get through the budget if we are going to tell every single county department that every single contract that they enter into must come back for a vote by the Board of Supervisors. That's just not what we do. And we are wasting an incredible opportunity to put money on the street today with parameters where the city has to sign off, the county has to sign off, right? Our staff have to approve it. And then we can get a report and readout. And if we think our staff made bad decisions, that's always in the purview of the Board of Supervisors to hold that staff accountable. But the other thing is we're sending a devastating message to the people of San Diego that says that when the city and the county come up with a creative way to increase the availability to immediately impact the condition on the street around behavioral health, again, it's usually the city and the county just fight all the time. And the first opportunity we're given of the city and the county working together to get money out today instead of tying it up in litigation for months on end, that we're going to squash that opportunity for real progress to do something that is inconsistent with the entire way that we operate is just needlessly obstructionist. And so, if we don't go forward with it, we don't go forward with it, but it will be a tremendously wasted opportunity. And I think if we start putting in place arbitrary bureaucratic things that are inconsistent with how we operate, I don't think that this will come back. And I think it will be a tragic, wasted opportunity to provide help and care for people who need it most. And so I would encourage us all to consider in these difficult times, we have an innovative, a creative way. We ultimately always can hold our staff accountable, but all we are doing is creating a new bar or barrier that doesn't exist in any other way we do things. And we're simply going to be impeding the ability to have a real impact today. But it is everyone's prerogative to vote their conscience, and I guess we'll see how it goes.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Yes, thank you. Here's the deal. It's almost laughable because you can move forward today. We're asking for a simple thing. And quite frankly, I cannot imagine the city saying, no, you can't do that. This is breaking precedents, and the amount of shaming and pressure is laughable to me at this point. Attorney pointed out in the beginning, this is not a typical RFP that the county puts out. There are very strict rules when we have an RFP process. This is an NRP process. So what you're doing today is breaking all general management service system rules. This is setting a new precedent. So please don't act as though this is the way the county always does things and we always spend millions of dollars without a proper RFP. You heard it from the attorney. It's not going to be publicly advertised. You're going to need to know about these funds. You need to be on this tight inner circle. And it's not an RFP, it's an NRP process. The city is not going to come back and unwind and say no to all of this. I think it's absolutely appropriate. We don't have the votes as it stands today. So please, just let's move forward. I'd love to support this with one modification, that it comes back. It doesn't have to come back as each individual project. It's fine if they bring back a grouping of projects that were current. You do have votes today to move forward. So please do not say that I lack passion for the people in our communities and don't want to help them. And please do not say that I distrust the staff. None of those things are true. I have a different standard for level of oversight, and I'm a lot of my frustration right now with the subcommittee on COVID that wants to establish that you cannot unwind this. And report back to this board will not allow us to unwind it. You heard it from the attorney. So let's move forward today. Let's get these dollars out. We do not need to delay. You will have to add a modification. It's a 4-vote item. It sounds as though you'll have a 5-0 vote if you add in that modification, but you don't have the ability to pass it. And no amount of lecturing to me at this point is going to make a difference.
Mr. Chairman, I have one last question.
Okay, Supervisor Jacob.
My question is to Helen, our CAO. Approximately how many contracts do we have in Health and Human Services, and how many of those contracts come back to the board for approval?
Supervisor Jacob, I'd have to go get the exact numbers, but we do about $1 billion worth of contracts every year. Jack Pellegrino is not here today. He would have that number off the top of his head, but I'd have to go back and check. But we do about $1 billion worth of contracting every year. Nick, do you know how many specific in the agency?
Yes, Helen, we have about 350 contracts, a total about $720 million annually.
Thank you.
And how many of those contracts come to the board for final approval?
Supervisor, I need to get back to you that. I would say a fair number of those contracts are directed by your board and are coming back, but they all have different funding source requirements. Some do not, some do. We can have that breakdown for you.
Well, I don't recall every contract coming back to the board.
Supervisor, that's correct. Most contracts do not come back. We get authority ahead of time as to what we would need to come back to the board on, but I couldn't give you the exact number. We'd have to go back and research that.
So is it correct that what a couple of my colleagues are asking for would be breaking precedent, would be very unusual in these circumstances?
In this particular circumstance, because we've not had this type of an arrangement before, I can't say it would be precedent or unprecedented. Normally what happens is you give us the direction ahead of time, we go off and we do that, and we execute to that. In this particular case, we do have direction in the criteria, so that would be the normal process of what you have set up and allow us to do that. But again, we have not done anything quite like this with the city of San Diego, where someone from another agency and us as a 2-person committee make those decisions. This would be the first time there, but it is very normal for us to be given a set of criteria, which you have done in this particular agreement with the city of San Diego, and allow us to proceed based on that criteria. That is a very normal process.
Thank you.
Let me conclude the discussion on this just by making an observation. We're talking about a fund that could certainly eventually come to the county, although I think there's probably every likelihood that it may go back to the city. And this is a moment in time where if we don't make this decision now and it stops or delays this, again, I have full confidence in the city of San Diego, but I would guess that given where they are and some of the financial issues that they're dealing with, if this money was determined to be rightfully the city of San Diego's after all the litigation is over. I don't think you'd see the city of San Diego putting this money into behavioral health programs and services. It's a moment in time. It's an opportunity we have. I brought this up in the state of the county as an initiative that I think is very unique. We have a unique opportunity to take advantage of this. Reference was made to the city of Chula Vista, where we provided, and I would point out it was a loan to the city of Chula Vista for the Bayfront redevelopment, using a portion of their funds and litigation on the redevelopment issues. And I would hope that my colleagues would really focus on the fact that this is an issue. Supervisor Gaspar had the workshop, our board conference 2 years ago, and really got us focusing on behavioral health issues and the fact that we have to do a lot more. Supervisor Desmond has done a great job, along with Supervisor Gaspar in North County, in order to make sure that we had additional behavioral health services up in North County. These funds will be available within the city of San Diego, since they're funds that are available to them. I would hope that perhaps some of the other cities that have funds that are a part of the litigation on redevelopment agencies, that we could enter into agreements with them to do things within their communities. So I think this is a unique opportunity. I think we need to seize it now. I would hope that my colleagues would support the item that is before us and have the full confidence in our staff that they're going to make sure that the funds that are going out are going for appropriate projects that will serve the needs of people that are seeking behavioral health services. With that, I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. If the clerk please call the roll. Supervisor Desmond, did you wish to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. I guess I'm looking for a compromise. I'm looking for some sort of grounding. And quite frankly, you know, if there was like maybe a $10 million minimum, if any money was spent over $10 million, that it came back to the board. What's frustrating here is to hear that an agreement has been made without input from the board, and that, yes, we have to accept this right away, otherwise we're going to lose the dollars. I don't agree with all of that, but I'm going to cave. I'm going to give you your yes vote, but know that I'm frustrated with how this is processing here. And I just want to make sure that I don't like being put into boxes to where you have to vote on this now and today. And I know the environment has kind of given us that position, but the fact that this went out and is already agreed to, and we're kind of forced to accept it, I'm not in favor of. So I'm going to give you a yes vote and move on.
Mr. Chairman, just one thing to address that, just to make it clear. This was before the board in closed session, so I can't discuss what was discussed in closed session, but it was discussed whether we should agree to settle this part of the lawsuit as far as this money was concerned. And just so you know, that I just want to make it clear for the record that the parameters that the board gave to us as far as negotiating the agreement was that there would be representatives from each party who would be making the decisions on this. So I do just feel like I need to clarify that there were parameters given to us that we were following, although I'm not going to go into any further discussion of what those parameters were.
Okay, and I do think that there was a suggestion by Supervisor Jacob that we have quarterly status reports on how things are going. I would imagine on any of these projects of any significant size, it's going to take a while to negotiate those. So I would think in the quarterly status reports, we'd be able to get the information that you're seeking, Supervisor Desmond. Okay, with that, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vice Chairman Cox? Chairman Cox. Chairman Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
I am voting aye, and I would like to commend my colleague Supervisor Desmond for being a team player. Thank you, Jim.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond? Vice Chairman Desmond, if we could hear your vote.
Aye.
Thank you.
Double aye.
All right. I think my colleagues for working with us on this item. I think it's a great opportunity that we have, and I sincerely thank all of my colleagues for their support of this item. We'll proceed on now to item 4, which is to receive an update on the COVID-19 response, ratify actions, execute leases and licenses of real estate property direct renters to be entitled to rent deferral and a moratorium on eviction, and authorize any other actions necessary to address the COVID-19 pandemics. And I would recognize, I believe we're going to have a staff presentation. We do have at least 8 speakers that wanted to speak on this item, plus a group presentation. And my understanding is if there's anybody that wishes to speak on this item, it would be appropriate to call in after the staff presentation. So if the CAO would like to go ahead and introduce this item, we can take it from there.
Thank you, Chairman Cox, members of the board. Today marks the 4th week since we had our first positive COVID-19 test and 7.5 weeks since we declared our public health and local emergency. We're also 19 days into our stay-home order. Just over 2 weeks ago, we were seeing cases doubling every 3 to 4 days, and it was clear we had to do something, everything possible to slow the spread. Today, we see that doubling number moving out to approximately 6 days. It's too early to say for certain, but that is a positive sign that perhaps we are flattening the curve. But the reality is, even 6-day doubling is exponential growth that could eventually overtake our healthcare system. So we continue to focus all of our energy on raising capacity across our healthcare system, meaning more structures, more staff, and more stuff, supplies. Regardless of what forecasting model you use, we know our peak is still weeks away. It is no time to let complacency set in. We can learn from New York, Washington State, New Jersey, Louisiana, and others so that we can be as best prepared as possible. Today, you will hear an update from our EOC Incident Commander, Don Stoyer, and our Public Health Officer, Dr. Wilma Wooten, the leaders of our regional response. But we also want to focus on county operations, what essential services are continuing to ensure we are meeting the needs of the public during these trying times. Each of our general managers will give you a snapshot of the myriad of services that must continue. And then Andy Pease will give you a quick overview of some preliminary financial impacts to the Health and Human Services Agency. Now let me be clear, this is not a countywide detailed financial review today. That will come, but we are nowhere near ready to present with any type of reasonable accuracy what that picture looks like. We expect to have a preliminary analysis in May during our 3rd quarter fiscal update, but Andy will be able to give you a look into actions being taken by the federal and state government now so that you have a sense of funds that may be available from the various stimulus actions. This, however, is one-time funding for response efforts. There is also a sobering truth of what lies ahead for us fiscally. These challenges could be far worse than 9/11 or the 2008 Great Recession. We will recover, but when you see the unemployment numbers, you realize business and consumer behavior will change. Normal revenue streams will dramatically drop, and thus county government will also need to change. Thankfully, we have reserves to help get us through the initial phases of this crisis, but don't let that be a false sense of security. Reserves are only one-time funding, and these issues are likely to last for several years if we are truly in a recession. It's just too early to know with certainty how deep or how protracted the economic impacts will be. In preparation of what's ahead, we have taken the following fiscal actions already. 1, the budget process has been suspended. I have pushed the reset button, and we are starting over. We expect to release our FY 2021 budget to the public in July, followed by public hearings and deliberations in August. 2, all new capital projects have been stopped. Any urgent requests will be brought separately to the Board of Supervisors for consideration. 3, all previously approved capital projects that have not yet started are also being stalled until a review has been completed to determine whether they must continue in light of our new economic reality. Any that can be postponed or canceled will be identified during the new budget process. 4th, all hiring needs are being reviewed and must be approved by each general manager to ensure we are positioned to right-size our organization going forward. At this time, we are not furloughing any employees. They are all working on various aspects of keeping essential functions operating or in response to the actual pandemic. But we will be making staffing adjustments going forward. And fifth, let me tell you that further actions will be brought forward in May during the third quarter budget review, and significant policy decisions will be forthcoming as we prepare the 2021 budget. These will be made in the context of the new fiscal realities and Board of Supervisors priorities. Let me also just say our workforce is incredible, and they are making unbelievable sacrifices as we both lead the regional response and continue to maintain essential county services. Unfortunately, we have had several employees contract COVID-19, and we do expect several more could fall ill. But rest assured, their fellow employees continually step up to help backfill and support the essential requirements to meet our citizens' needs and to support their colleagues with prayers and well wishes as they recover. I am so grateful for our employees' dedication, their stamina, and their positive outlook. Our county family remains strong and faithful to our public service calling. Without further comment, let me turn it over to our COVID-19 EOC Incident Commander, my amazing Assistant CAO, who day to day is showing what great leadership truly is. Don, take it away.
Thank you, Helen. Since we last came to your board on March 24th, our efforts to address and slow the spread of COVID-19 have been vast. Several exciting and innovative efforts have been put in place. In an unprecedented partnership, we are standing up a 250-bed federal medical station at Palomar Medical Center in Escondido. This hospital will serve as a regional resource to support response and capacity efforts region-wide. In addition, we are proud to have deployed our newest community resource, the Live Well mobile office, to support our nurses doing field testing. And our sheriff continues to work collaboratively with law enforcement agencies across the county, educating on gaining voluntary compliance and implementing appropriate enforcement actions to support the stay-at-home order, ultimately protecting the health and safety of our population. Additionally, in continuing to expanding our efforts, our care and shelter team most recently partnered with the City of San Diego to provide public health screenings and behavioral health services at the expanding homeless shelter at the Convention Center. They continue to enhance the services provided to persons under investigation and those that require isolation, recently launching a telehealth clinic, including on-site nursing and behavioral health services at our public health hotel. And perhaps the biggest lift yet, the team is actively setting up an alternative care site within a dormitory at UCSD to provide additional space and capacity to serve our population. And these projects are just a snapshot of the many efforts moving forward each day to ensure the health and safety of our population. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Wooten, our public health officer, to provide an update on our current landscape in San Diego County. Dr. Wooten.
Thank you, Don. Chairman Cox, members of the board. Since the last time we were before your board on March 24th, the county continues our efforts on flattening the curve, which essentially is slowing the spread of the COVID-19 virus over a number of months so that fewer people become infected and need health care at any given time. A key assumption of this strategy is that a slower infection rate means a less stressed healthcare system, fewer hospital visits on any given day, and fewer people getting sick. The theoretical flattening the curve means slowing the spread of the virus so fewer people are infected and need to seek care by implementing evidence-based non-pharmaceutical strategies. With these social distancing strategies, there is a reduction in the peak number of cases and related demands on our healthcare system and infrastructure. The protective measures noted on the previous slide includes several non-pharmaceutical activities that have been implemented through health officer orders. And this slide is a summary over the past week of those various orders. On March 29th, the health officer order was amended until further notice for social distancing and to stay at home. On March 30th, the health officer order banned cruise ships from docking and disembarking. On April 3rd, the health officer order was amended for face coverings and closure of parking lots at public parks and beaches. And lastly, on April 4th, the health officer order was amended for business face coverings guidance and a ban on water recreations. And lastly, today businesses are required to provide social distancing and sanitation protocols per the health officer's order. As you know, the number of COVID-19 cases in San Diego continues to grow. This table provides a summary of the total positive cases with a breakdown by age. As of yesterday, the county has a total of 1,404 positive cases. 804 of this total, or 57.3%, are between the ages of 10 to 49 years of age. 657, or 46.8%, are female, with 52.6%, or 739, being male. 269, or 19%, have been hospitalized, and 102, or 7.3%, of the total number of cases are in the intensive care, an intensive care unit. And this number represents 38% of the total number of those hospitalized. Unfortunately, we must also report 19 deaths, which represents 1.4% of the total number of cases. This information is posted on our website daily and is broken down by cities, zip code, and we have now included race and ethnicity. This graphic shows the same information depicted over time, and shown here are the total numbers that I've just reviewed, including hospitalized cases. And also we've added a new element, which those that have estimated to have recovered from hospitalization. So in addition to, again, total positive cases, it includes ICU cases, cumulative cases, as well as cumulative deaths. This next slide is just another depiction of the COVID-19 cases and other information. This is the county's COVID-19 dashboard, which will be posted on our website soon. In the very middle is the static numbers, which change daily, of total number of cases, hospitalizations, ICUs, and reported total number of reported tests. On the left side, you will see cumulative number of cases and day-by-day cases. And then at the bottom on the left, we have hospitalized cases, ICU cases, and deaths all in one histogram bar depiction. On the right side, these are the cases by zip code or city municipalities. And individuals can play with this information and click on any given city to drill down further. At the very bottom are the confirmed number of cases by day. So our countywide testing capacity continues to grow as well. As of today, our county lab has 2 testing platforms, with the Hologic Genomics still pending. Adding the Abbott M2000 has lessened our reliance on the CDC testing kit, and it brings our testing capacity to 310 tests per day, providing results within 24 hours. Additionally, our lab has supported 7 local hospitals to stand up their testing systems, and this is up from 4 hospitals since our last presentation. In total, these 7 hospitals have the capacity to test over 1,800 specimens per day. These testing results range from 1 day to 5 days. More systems will also soon begin testing in San Diego. Lastly, since the last time we were before your board, 2 additional commercial laboratories have also come on board: BioReference Laboratories and Mayo, bringing the total to 4 commercial laboratory test sites all of which have the capacity to provide approximately 23,000 tests per day. These test results are usually received within 3 to 7 days. Now, while we will continue to see the number of cases increase, we should not be discouraged. As people appear to be following the stay-at-home order, the next two slides that I'll show you show how visits and length of stay at different places throughout the county change compared to a baseline in mid-February before state and local orders were imposed. These changes are calculated using the same kind of aggregated and anonymized data used to show popular times for places in Google Maps. Changes for each day are compared to a baseline value for that day of the week. The baseline is the median value for the responding day of the week during the 5-week period from January 3rd through February 6th. The report shows trends over several weeks, with the most recent data representing as of March 29th, which basically shows that this takes a while. So that's March 29th is the latest data that we have. The graph shows data pertaining to retail and recreation, which is down 50%, grocery and pharmacy trends, which are down 26%, and parks trend, which is down 51%. Similarly, this slide shows that transit stations mobility is down 64%, workplace is down 41%, most likely due to teleworking opportunities, and it appears that more people are staying at home as residential trends have increased by 15%. These graphs show that the county's intense efforts in mobilizing the public to stay at home is working. It should be noted that the state also has similar findings. So what should the public do? We continue to recommend and emphasize that all San Diegans should follow the governor's executive order to stay at home and the recommendation to cover your face. Practice social distancing, maintaining 6 feet between individuals. Continue good hand washing practices, and if you are sick, we want you to stay home and self-isolate. If your symptoms worsen, call your healthcare provider. And lastly, if you leave the place, cover your face. In summary, our call to action is to stay home, practice social distancing, and cover your face in public. There continues to be community transmission of COVID-19 in San Diego County and throughout the nation. The county continues to respond in coordination with our local hospitals, cities, schools, businesses, and other regional partners. COVID-19 has thrown a curveball at National Public Health Week, which is recognized this week from April 6th to 12th. Typically, in recognition of this annual event, the Public Health Champion Award event is held. This year, the event will be modified and presented virtually. While everyone's mind is on COVID-19, there are still a lot of ways to celebrate National Public Health Week while keeping our communities safe. Beginning this Friday, we will start to announce one recipient each day. To begin the week, I would like to thank all of our hospital workers for their steadfast work fighting COVID-19 to keep our community healthy and safe. And now, please welcome Nick Machion.
Thank you, Dr. Wooten. And you reminded us that it is National Public Health Week, recognizing the vital importance of public health in our everyday lives. But we sincerely thank you and the entire county public health team and all of our public health professionals across our county for the tireless and dedicated leadership and action protecting the health of our entire county. Now, as we continue to support our public health order to stay at home to save lives, the Health and Human Service Agency is staying open to serve lives. We have not stopped our services. Rather, our agency and our contracted service providers have stepped up our efforts in helping our residents with essential public health and behavioral health services. We continue to support the safety and well-being of children and vulnerable adults through our child welfare services and adult protective services. And we continue to make sure that families that are struggling, including our homeless and our vulnerable seniors, are surviving these very difficult economic times through help with our food assistance, health insurance, and rental assistance, among many other safety net programs we provide. The state stay-at-home order has clearly resulted in immediate impacts that will have long-term effects on our programs and services, no doubt. Taking immediate action, we moved to mostly a virtual service delivery system, including telephonic, telemedicine, and video conferencing to protect the health of our clients and staff while still providing our high quality of care. Although we have been maintaining our safety net services, since the stay-at-home orders were issued, we have seen dramatic changes to our 2019 averages. For instance, in the area of health, we have increased our meal delivery services to seniors and homebound adults by 92%. This represents nearly 29,000 meals. However, we're seeing a 20% decrease in admissions at our county psychiatric hospital. This has brought down our patient census to an average of 40 per day. Further, in the area of safety, we've also seen slight downtick in contacts made by our psychiatric emergency response teams. Now, this could be an indicator that people who need care may not be accessing it, or that the transition to services care through our new methods like telephonic services may be taking some time to unfold. It's just too early to ascertain the exact cause, but we continue to actively monitor these service levels to ensure we're providing the needed services to San Diegans in need of our help. As for home visits for investigations, they have decreased by 62%. This is due to the decrease in child welfare referrals, along with the change in how home investigations are conducted. Following recent state guidance and direction, our child welfare services staff are now making an in-person contact with the family for the first visit on investigations, and following up interviews are conducted through video conferencing. In the area of thriving, we've seen a 72% increase in the number of residents calling the county access call line to get information on services and get connected with staff. This represents over 240,000 calls. In addition, we've seen a 96% increase in the number of CalFresh applications. This is the assistance for food. And we received, resulting over about 23,000 applications. These are just a few of the measures of the many important programs that our county continues to provide, and we're closely monitoring, as we know there are many long-term effects to our services that we will need to prepare for in the future. This concludes my update, and I'll turn it over to Mel Milstein with the Land Use and Environment Group. Mel?
Thank you, Nick. During this unique and challenging time, LUGE continues its commitment to our stakeholders, our customers, and the community we serve. Our departments continue to provide essential services that protect our environment, support the development community by continuing to process building permits, maintain our vital infrastructure, and provide learning opportunities. We are also continuing to enforce and investigate or respond to safety-related issues in hazardous materials, road repairs, and code compliance. The Department of Agriculture and Weights and Measures continues to protect our agriculture industry by setting up traps for invasive pests and protect our consumers by responding to overcharging through weights and measures. Although most of the region is off its roads, APCD continues to inspect and respond to complaints regarding air quality. Our public waterways are closed to the public, but DH will continue to inspect and respond to complaints regarding water quality. Maintaining and operating our sanitation and wastewater facilities is critical, and DPW continues these roles while also monitoring the watershed compliance to ensure compliance with MS4. We are continuing to implement our climate action plan and trying to capture the impact of telecommuting is having on our GHG emissions. The use of technology has always been a mainstay in LUGE's business operations, and this situation has provided us with the opportunity to leverage this technology even more so. Just last week, we held our first planning commission virtually using both Blue Jeans and Skype for Business and received positive feedback from stakeholders. We have transitioned to virtual service for many facets that would have previously been required as an in-person visit or an inspector visit to a location. DEH is shifting to an online plan check process for programs including restaurant and pool plan construction. PDS is processing over half its building permits volume online, and the remainder in a drop-off zone off service areas, so customers don't have to wait at a county office. Our libraries have seen a spike in e-book checkouts that went from 4,000 to 7,500, and our residents are transitioning to e-books as noticed in our jump in e-card registration. And although DPR's Facebook page experience has had the follower content ever, There's still a time for a traditional approach to providing services. The parks team has continued to maintain our parks, trails, and bike paths, all while reminding visitors to maintain social distancing. The Department of Environmental Health has been communicating with restaurants and food handlers throughout the region, creating food facility sanitation guidance, general disinfection guidance for businesses, and safe food delivery documents that have been translated to 7 different languages. These documents were shared via statewide associations and are being used by other jurisdictions in California. All of us continue to face the challenges associated with COVID-19, and Luge is committed to serving the community during this unprecedented time. And now I'll turn it over to General Manager of Public Safety Group, Holly Porter.
Thank you, Mel. Good morning, Chairman Cox and members of the board. Residents of San Diego County can rest assured that the Public Safety Group departments are fully operational, although some have adapted the delivery of public services to align with the public health orders currently in place due to COVID-19. Sheriff's 911 dispatchers are taking calls, and deputies are out in our community enforcing laws, investigating crimes, and arresting criminals as they do each and every day. We're fortunate to have a dedicated group of first responders who continue to answer the call to service. San Diego County residents will be pleased to hear that crimes against persons, which includes assaults, homicide, kidnapping, and sexual offenses, saw a 7% decrease in the sheriff's area of responsibility in the month of March when compared with February. And crimes against property decreased 9% in March in the sheriff's area of responsibility when compared with February. Our dispatch agencies and first responders remain busy. Medical incidents dispatched by Monte Vista, our fire authority dispatch center, were up 5% for the 4-week period from March 4th through March 31st when compared with the previous 4 weeks. The Sheriff's Department has several isolation modules set aside in their jails, and they're increasing social distancing in jail facilities with the goal of keeping everyone healthy. The total population in the sheriff's jails has decreased from 5,497 to 4,485 since the proclamation of our local emergency on February 14th. We're happy to report the enforcement of public health orders in the sheriff's jurisdiction has been achieved largely through voluntary compliance. As of the end of the day yesterday, the sheriff had issued 40 citations. Sheriff Gore has communicated clearly that public health orders are not suggestions, but rather mandates that carry consequences if they are ignored. While the April meeting of the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board was canceled due to COVID-19, citizens are still able to file complaints of misconduct concerning sheriff's deputies and probation officers by completing forms on the CLRB website and by talking by phone with a CLRB's staff member. Our probation department is stepping up as the state releases 164 inmates from state prison back to San Diego County in the next 60 days. Probation supervision is continuing during this pandemic for both adults and for youth. And probation continues caring for youth in our detention facilities. Youth in our detention facilities have decreased from 268 to 238 in the last 5 weeks. Probation has been working to help youth in our custody to stay digitally connected to families, school, and services. The San Diego County District Attorney, Summer Stephan, recently issued a warning to businesses and scammers not to take advantage of consumers by price gouging during this public health emergency. During a declared state of emergency, it is illegal for businesses to increase their prices for essential goods or services by more than 10% unless they can show that their own costs have been increased. Violations are subject to criminal prosecution. The district attorney also recently launched a domestic violence resource website that provides no-cost local services and resources, which could be critical for people who are staying at home and facing potentially abusive situations. That site can be found at preventdv1.org. Fire service personnel and paramedics are responding to calls for service in this time of increasing need. Numerous fire authority staff are working in the county's Emergency Operations Center, the organizational center of our region's response to COVID-19. Your board has invested over the years in a robust emergency management capability, and that's evident as an Office of Emergency Services staff work alongside other county employees within the incident command structure of this pandemic response. As we approach the peak of this pandemic locally in the coming weeks, Public Safety Group departments will still be out protecting and serving although sometimes in a slightly modified fashion. Despite the closure of the Superior Court, the public defender is still working up cases, talking to clients by phone. The district attorney, the public defender, and the sheriff's department began testing technology and will be utilizing video teleconferencing to participate in limited court proceedings during this extended closure. While the courts have mostly closed through at least the end of April, the Department of Child Support Services wants their clients to know they can still connect with their case managers. Child Support has just launched a live chat feature on their website so that San Diego County residents can access help on their child support order or payment. Case managers can also be reached by phone, email, and text message. And while Animal Services has stopped all public visits to their Bonita and Carlsbad shelters, they are still exiting animals to rescue organizations and taking in strays. So from medical examiner investigators to deputies and probation officers, fire service personnel and emergency managers, public safety group employees are fully engaged and out working in our community so that residents of San Diego County can remain safely at home. I'll now turn the presentation over to Tracy Sandoval.
Thanks, Holly. As the Finance and General Government Group serves as the foundation to all other groups in providing essential services, it's no surprise that most of our focus has been working to ensure the organization has the support and resources to respond to this pandemic, whether it be assistance with technology that allows for teleworking, providing guidance to departments and employees on human resource policies, or staffing the Emergency Operations Center. The Department of Purchasing and Contracting has played a key role in the procurement of emergency needs while maintaining our current large portfolio of contracts. General Services has worked quickly to adapt to our changing facility needs and continues to support all county departments as needs arise. And amidst all this upheaval, the Registrar of Voters achieved an on-time election certification on April 2nd, which was an arduous task without a global pandemic. Although our customer service counters are closed to the public in the Treasurer Tax Collector, the Assessor Recorder County Clerk, the Auditor Controller, and the Clerk of the Board, these departments continue to provide their essential services from remote locations via phone, email, or online. Property tax payments are being accepted online, via mail, or at drop-off box locations. And marriage services continue but have been limited to appointments that existed prior to office closures and for emergency license requests such as military deployments and medical emergencies. And passport and notary services have been temporarily suspended. Our employees never cease to amaze us with their commitment to serve our community during times when it's needed most. Looking at this snapshot of the status of our employees during the response, we show that about 82% of our workforce is serving in essential roles, with roughly half of them teleworking. 6% of those considered non-essential are also teleworking and performing their normal duties where possible, or have been completing professional development. Where needed, these individuals are reassigned to essential duties. And approximately 12% of the workforce is on some sort of leave status. We have limited hiring to only essential, critical vacancies during this response. In addition to our greatest resource we have, that being our employees, we clearly need the financial resources to take on the challenges of this pandemic. I will now turn it over to Andy Pease to cover some of the specific projections of the impacts.
Good morning. Currently, with our efforts to address COVID-19, we have spent an estimated $18 to $20 million year to date. And we are spending at a clip of approximately $13 to $14 million a month, with a fiscal year-end cost that could be between $50 and $60 million. And this is a conservative estimate. This is based on what we know at this point in time. What the true cost will be is difficult number to land on, as we still face so much uncertainty ahead of us. What we do know is our most challenging days are still in front of us. So as we continue to develop new strategies, new ideas, and implement new approaches, our spending has and will continue to grow. Now, these costs include staff time for things such as surveillance, monitoring, sanitation, medical support, behavioral health services, public health services, our frontline work and efforts, and administrative support, just to highlight a few. We also have costs going toward the purchase of ventilators, PPEs, lab equipment, and hotels for care and shelter needs. So the question is, how are we covering these costs? Currently, we are using our general fund dollars to do that. However, we do anticipate reimbursement from several sources. As to how much that will be is yet to be determined, but some of the larger federal and state funds we are looking at includes, first and foremost, FEMA. FEMA is one of our primary funding sources during an emergency, and we are actively engaged with Cal OES and FEMA to pursue available financial support. Now, typically, FEMA will reimburse 75% of all allowable costs, and then the county would cover the remaining 25%. What is atypical is that FEMA is allowing for funding for non-congregate housing, so hotels and motels for identified populations at risk. Also atypical is due to the nature of this emergency, FEMA is working with jurisdictions, including the County of San Diego, to advance a portion of funding up front. And we have submitted all the paperwork, and we anticipate receiving approximately $19 million in the coming days to help with these efforts. We are acquiring a consultant who is a subject matter expert on FEMA to ensure that we claim and get reimbursed for as much FEMA funding as allowable. In addition to FEMA, we are monitoring the various federal stimulus packages that have been passed. To date, there have been 3 phases approved, and there has been increased funding for our Medicaid programs, for SNAP or food stamps, for senior nutrition programs, for our community development block program, community services block program, TANF, and that's just to name a few. We have been, recently, funding was allocated to the CDC at the federal level for public health emergency response efforts, and the state of California received approximately $41 million of those funds, of which the county has received, and we have in hand $2.4 million to address these efforts. The third phase of the federal stimulus plan, called the CARES Act, includes $150 billion for states, counties, and cities to address COVID-19. We are awaiting guidance from the Treasury on how much will be available to the County of San Diego and exactly how these dollars can be used. However, it is anticipated it could be a significant amount of money for our region to address our response efforts, and we anticipate and hope to get more information later this week. Likewise, the state has taken several actions to allocate funds to counties, cities, businesses, and individuals to help during this time. One of them is the state-enacted SB 89, which includes $150 million allocated specifically for emergency COVID-19 efforts for homeless individuals. The San Diego region, the city, RTFH, and the county was allocated $7.1 million of these funds, including $1.6 to the county, which is being used for the care and shelter efforts at the convention center. Now, we are applying all resources to meet this emergency head-on. The financial challenges will be significant. We are going to have a sizable amount of one-time costs this fiscal year and into the next. But with FEMA and the federal stimulus funds and state funding, we do expect to have one-time funding to cover a portion of these costs. But more challenging than these one-time costs are the ongoing financial challenges we'll be dealing with for the foreseeable future. The LAO recently issued a financial perspective warning the legislature that when the governor releases his May revise, the state likely will be facing a budget problem due to 3 issues: higher direct costs to respond to the public health emergency, higher indirect costs as a result of changes in the economy, meaning higher unemployment, greater need for services, greater need for benefits, etc., as well as lower revenues as a result of changes in the economy. The LAO states that the length and severity of the public health emergency will drive the severity of the economic disruption and the ensuing revenue implications. And although federal action will mitigate some of the state's potential budget problems, the LAO does not believe it will significantly address the major source of budgetary strain. Specific for San Diego and specific for HHSA, we have over $600 million in sales tax and vehicle license fee revenues allocated to our various health, mental health, and social service programs. During the Great Recession, we lost about $50 million in these ongoing funds. Now, it's uncertain how much we'll lose with this emergency. However, preliminary estimates show it could be as much as $80 million in fiscal year 2021. For Mental Health Services Act, which is an income tax on millionaires, we have been spending locally over $200 million annually, and that's approximately $30 million over our annual receipts, and we have been reducing our trust fund reserve. It's unclear how much of these funds will be impacted, but we expect it to be substantial, and we could anticipate that our reserves could easily be gone at some point next year. So although we are facing challenging times, and I'm coming across very dour, I am confident, though, in this board and the staff and the team that the county is fully prepared and ready to address these issues. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Don Stoyer.
Thank you, Andy. In addition to receiving today's update, we recommend your board take the following additional actions. Ratify all actions previously taken in response to this local health emergency and local emergency. Authorize the Director of Department of General Services to execute leases and licenses of real property in support of COVID-19 pandemic response. Consistent with actions your board took on March 24th, we recommend your board direct that renters of County of San Diego owned properties be entitled to rent deferral and a moratorium on eviction. And finally, take any other action necessary to address the COVID-19 pandemic emergency response. This concludes our presentation.
Mr. Chairman, I would note for members of the public that have requested to speak on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you, and you will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Thank you.
Okay, so it's my understanding that we have at least 8 people that indicated they want to speak on this item, plus one group presentation. Is the group presentation ready to go?
They are not, Mr. Chairman, and we can take individual speakers while waiting for that group to join if you'd like.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and take the individual speakers, and when the group presentation is ready to go, we will allocate them up to 15 minutes. Otherwise, the individual speakers will have 3 minutes each. So go ahead and call the first speaker up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number, and you'll hear a notification on your phone that your call has been unmuted. We'd ask that each caller please state their name for the record, and as the chairman noted, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. And I would remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or their live video stream before they begin speaking. I'll turn it over to Erin Demers to invite our first caller.
Thank you. Our first caller is Subrain Damahori with last 4 digits 0015. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board. You may begin now.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can. You may proceed.
Hi, this is David Garcia. Good morning. This is David Garcia. I'm president of SEIU Local 221, representing more than 10,000 county workers that are on the front lines of managing the horrible impact of COVID-19 pandemic here in San Diego. Today we are sharing some of those stories from the front lines with you, stories we collected a little more than over a week, with a survey of healthcare workers. We have submitted a copy to the clerk and all supervisors, and yesterday we had more than 100 members on a call, a virtual speak out, and release a survey report highlighting the lack of PPEs, personal protective equipment, many are experiencing. And this is from your county workers. We also submitted to each of you 900 petitions demanding the county protect all workers. The data from the survey points to hot spots where frontline staff lack safety equipment, including the county jails operated by the sheriff, County Psychiatric Hospital, and Polinsky. We have heard of a growing number of positive cases and presumptive positive quarantines for COVID-19 at locations like these. Our members are very scared. In the survey, half of the nurses we surveyed reported not having N95 respirator masks. Overall, 90% of our frontline health and human service staff surveyed reported either no access or limited access to respirators and masks. Supplies of gloves, protective clothing, sanitizer, and wipes are also limited at many sites. The County of San Diego must take necessary steps to protect our frontline staff and maintain our public health response capacity. Frontline staff recommended the following: comply with the aerosol transmissible disease ATD standard and provide N95 respirator masks to all the covered employees upon request. Provide adequate PPE to all personnel required to work during the COVID-19 pandemic. Use all available resources, including county reserves, to obtain additional N95s and other PPEs. Provide hazard pay to those personnel required to work during COVID-19. And lobby state and federal governments to use their emergency powers to direct the private sector to produce additional N95 respirators and other PPE needed essential frontline staff. Finally, the county must agree to our COVID-19 bargaining proposal, which addresses these and other critical issues. Other employers are making commitments to their employees' health and safety in writing, including providing employee PPE and hazard pay. The county needs to do so through, has been going through this bargaining with us, and they've been failing to bring that as a priority. We want to be good partners with the county to protect public health during the biggest crisis of our generation, but we will not sacrifice the safety of the county workers. There is a disconnect between what our county workers are seeing on the front lines and what is being said sometimes in this room. We need there to be a connection. We need the Board of Supervisors to help lead, and we need better protection for our frontline workers. Thank you.
Thank you. And did you have additional members of your group on the call who wanted to speak, David? We have one with last five
Yes,
digits, 5755. Is that part of your group? Last four digits?
We had Amanda Cope, which is 2552.
She's on the call. I will unmute her now.
Okay, and Crystal Irving, after that, hers is 5755.
Great. They're both on the call. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Amanda, if you would like to continue with the group presentation, you may address the board at this time. Thank you.
Good morning, members of the board. I know David used my maiden name, which was Cope. My last name is currently DeHart. As he said, I'm a psychiatric registered nurse at the County Psychiatric Hospital and a proud member of SEIU 221. Thank you for having me on this morning to speak with you. I'm here to speak on behalf of the frontline employees at SDCPH who are continuing to work every day during the COVID-19 pandemic. At 10:01, I'm sorry, you can hear the sirens in the background. Hold on. On April 3rd, at 10:01, we received an email that was sent out to all of the staff at SDCPH stating that an employee of San Diego County Psychiatric Hospital tested positive for coronavirus or COVID-19 as of April 2nd, 2020. The person who tested positive is not currently in the workplace and will not return to work until medically cleared. Employees who had close contact with a staff member are being notified and are taking appropriate precautions. Prior to this email being sent, I'd been contacted by multiple staff about reports of more than one staff testing positive and many others who were pending results and self-quarantining. The staff who have been exposed have not been notified, nor have they been contacted in any way. The email states an employee, but on my return to work on April 4th, we were informed that there were 3 employees who tested positive, one of them being from our registry staff from UNI, and that there were 14 presumptive cases. Staff were informed towards the end of the shift on April 4th that the 14 presumptive cases had come back with negative results for COVID-19. But to my knowledge, there were 5 employees due to them contacting me personally that were tested by their primary care physicians and were still pending results, making the total presumptive cases 19, not 14. We're requesting the county management must give us correct information. When members of management say they're going to inform staff, they must follow through, address staff who are not issued correct sizes of N95 respirators because we were all issued kind of a one-size-fits-all, and N95s are not a one-size-fits-all. There's multiple sizes and manufacturers of masks. Address the reusing of N95 respirators, as we are using ours for 4 shifts in a row before getting replacements, and they're supposed to actually be used for a day. You're supposed to use another one the next day, use another one the next day, and then rotate them through, not use them 4 days in a row. And work with staff who have immunocompromised family members or family members who are over the age of 65 in the same home. Right now, employees have no other options than to either risk infecting their loved ones or pay to shelter themselves away from home. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll continue with the group presentation with Crystal Irving.
Hear me?
Yes, Crystal, thank you. You may continue.
Hi. Good morning. My name is Crystal Irving, and I'm a protective services worker, board member of the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board, and a proud member of SEIU Local 221. I want to first start by commending Supervisors Nathan Fletcher and Greg Cox for their response to COVID-19 crisis here in San Diego County and providing the daily updates to the community. I also want to commend my union sister, Amanda DeHart, who, along with her fellow nurses, doctors, and intake workers, are on the front lines, putting their lives at risk to save humanity every day. I believe that our top priority is to protect healthcare workers who are dealing directly with active COVID-19 cases, and we have heard that there's still a lot more work that needs to be done in that area. But I also want to advocate on behalf of some of the forgotten frontline workers during this time, which are the social workers. We're encouraging residents to live well, stay home, and take safety precautions, and it is now more important than ever to ensure the safety of your workers who service the community. Our social workers are out in the field entering numerous homes for sometimes hours at a time in the name of protecting children and preserving families, and we are scared. We're concerned about our health and our safety. We're concerned about the health and safety of families and our families. We're also worried that we've already been exposed to COVID-19 and are simply asymptomatic. We have coworkers coming in sneezing and saying it's just quote unquote allergies. We're worried. I came across a post that said we shouldn't treat COVID-19 as a disease we don't want to catch, but we should treat it like a disease we already have and we're trying not to transmit. This mentality is the only way that you will save the lives of your workforce and prevent us from spreading or getting COVID-19. There's still social workers and clerical staff interacting daily with the public and entering homes after asking screening questions that are quite frankly outdated. We're scared, and we're also making critical assessments and decisions while operating with concern and fear of our own lives and the safety of others around us. And we also don't feel like we have the adequate supervision at this time. Social workers and clerical still need seamless access to PPEs to protect ourselves and protect the vulnerable populations that we serve. We want transparency when people are testing positive and the appropriate actions taken. We want to ensure that our offices and buildings, especially Polinsky, are thoroughly cleaned and disinfected. I want to leave you all with one final thought that we highlight when we train new foster parents, and that is there is a difference between physical safety and psychological safety. Your workers in the field need both. We need to feel like our health and physical safety is at the forefront of your leadership, but we also want to know that as this pandemic is only beginning to reach the peak, we want to know that you'll have our back and our best interests and the best interests of those workers serving the public. Thank you.
Thank you. And does that conclude your organized presentation?
I believe so.
Thank you. David, we're just confirming that concludes your organized presentation.
Yes, it does.
Thank you. We'll turn to our individual speakers in favor or on this item now. We'll call it the last 4 digits of your phone number, and then you'll each have 3 minutes to address the board. If you can please state your full name for the record before you begin. We'll start with 6466, which may be Sean Elo. 6466.
Good morning, supervisors. This is Sean Elo Rivera, Executive Director of Youth Will. Youth Will envisions a future where every young person has what they need to be happy, healthy, and prepared to reach their potential. Over the past few weeks, our organization has been working furiously to learn directly from young people how COVID-19 is affecting them. It became clear immediately that although the direct health effects of the virus may be more dangerous for our elders, the derivative effects of the crisis are disproportionately impacting our youth. Seemingly overnight, an already vulnerable community was upended by the loss of work, school, and critical programs. After speaking with youth from across the region, from Vista to Chula Vista, Del Mar to El Cajon, high school students, college students, and recent grads, foster youth, homeless youth, and those living with parents, there are some specific needs that have risen to the top of the list of needs for San Diego's youth. Shortly, you will be hearing directly from some young folks about these needs. I will briefly touch upon some of those priorities, though, that must be addressed rapidly if we are to mitigate the short and long-term effects that COVID-19 could have on our community. First, communication about resources. Young people, as we all know, receive information differently than some of us who are a little bit older. It is really, really important that we do much more to engage youth in disseminating the information to the other young people in the community. We encourage you to hire some young folks for this work. They are very effective messengers and could be critical to connecting vulnerable communities to the resources that are being made available by the valiant efforts of the county. Additionally, it is super, super important that we address the health needs of our young people. You all had a very important discussion about mental health resources. We encourage you to invest in telephonic and digital mental health resources and mentorship opportunities. Many young people are receiving critical mental health resources at their schools and will no longer be able to access those. This is a very, very traumatic time, and this is not the time for young people to lose a connection to mental health resources. We also encourage you to invest in feminine health products and the dissemination of those at our food distribution centers. It is super, super important that the young women in our community have access to the products that they need to maintain their health. Additionally, we want to make sure that young people are being included in the conversation about how it is that we are going to address these issues. You'll hear more about the details of this, but we very, very much encourage you to establish a formal pattern for doing this. Young people are an incredible asset to our community, and there is no one better to understand the needs of young people than young people themselves. We should bring them into the fold and addressing those needs and finding the solutions to the problems that are affecting them. I thank you for your time. Please have a good day.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Brittany Holman, last four digits 4397. Brittany Holman, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. And again, please confirm your name for the audio record when you begin.
Hi, my name's Brittany Holman. I'm with Youth Well. I'm speaking about the feminine products, the free feminine products, and more accessibility to them, because I believe that everyone should have accessibility to them in San Diego. Unfortunately, there are thousands of people living in San Diego on the streets without access to these products. They're also very expensive to the average young person. The tax that was taken off of them will only last another year and a half because they're considered luxuries, not necessities. This is an extra cost to women that they should not have to pay for because they were born with this normal, natural given thing. It has contributed to our public health crisis, and I feel as though no one is actively trying to resolve this issue. Also, with the whole COVID-19 pandemic, nearly 80% of public health workers on the forefront of this pandemic are women, and they should not have to worry about being deprived of their essential needs. So our solution is accessibility to these products in food distribution centers. And that's it.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Monet Panza, last four digits 1535. Again, Monet Panza, 1535. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board, and please confirm your name for the audio record when you begin.
Good morning. My name is Monet Panza, and I'm here with Youth Will. I'm also here today because I believe that youth deserve access to safe economic resources and means of income during this pandemic. At this time, many young people are facing the threat of economic instability, myself included, and feel very isolated and unaware of ways to avoid slipping through the cracks of our economy. And so I think it's important that we propose a youth emergency resource task force to be created where young ambassadors are hired in order to get word out to other youth about community resources and economic opportunities during this time, not only for themselves, but for their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Haley Rico. Haley Rico, last four digits 7150. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board, and please confirm your name for the audio record when you begin.
Hey everyone, my name is Haley and I am with Youth Will. I believe during these crucial times, resources, specifically menstrual products, are unattainable. Female youth are not being considered in response to COVID-19, which results in the period poverty levels to spike. Menstrual products should not be looked at as inessential because it is a serious issue that affects the overall health of all girls and women. And there was a bill in 2017 that was passed in California stating that schools were not allowed to charge students for menstrual products. But due to the COVID-19 stay-at-home order, it leaves teens without access to menstrual products because stores are going out of stock and financially impacted families can't afford basic necessities anymore, making these essential products scarce and limited. And our solution is just handing out menstrual products at food banks and stuff. But yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you. We have one remaining speaker on the call, and we had a couple other members of the public who indicated that they wanted to address the board on item 4, which is the COVID-19 update. So if you're listening and you would still like to address the board, please call in at this time. Sophia Haidari and Ricky Pena. Sophia and Ricky, if you would still like to address the board on item 4, please call in at this time. And now we'll turn to Josh Piedra, last four digits 3578. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board, and please confirm your name when you begin. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Piedra. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am with Youth Will, and I believe that every young person has a right to be included in our governmental process. We are in the middle of a massive public health crisis that puts our marginalized communities at risk here in San Diego County. While it should be acknowledged that our county government deserves credit for proactively allocating resources to this crisis, we also need to be aware that the youth who are most affected by COVID-19 are slipping through the cracks. Even before this crisis, young people between the ages of 0 to 25 are disproportionately at higher risk of living in poverty compared to older age groups. This fact has only been worsened by a current global pandemic. Yet, current relief measures have not included young people in identifying our unique challenges and finding the necessary solutions, leaving our young communities extremely vulnerable and alone. This disconnect between our government and young people must be fixed. I am on call today to ask for all of your support in creating a youth task force to provide the county government with the guidance for how to best support and communicate with youth during this time of crisis. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The remaining public speakers who had requested to speak are not on the call at this time, so we can turn to the supervisors, and if they join the call, I will let you know. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I would just note for the record that we have received 17 e-comments on this item. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. We will come back now to a board discussion on this item unless there's any other calls that come in. Is there a desire on the part of my colleagues to speak on this item?
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, Supervisor Jacob, then followed by Vice Chairman Jim Desmond.
I have 3 questions. Why does it take so long to get the test results?
Supervisor Jacob, this is Dr. Wooten. I'll answer that question. The time to obtain test results back depend on where the test results are being obtained. If you will, we can go back to the slide in my presentation. In our public, we have 3 buckets of capacity in terms of testing in San Diego. In our public health laboratory, our test results can come back within 24 hours, as has been stated. In our hospitals, if they are performing the tests themselves in their facility, it's about the same time period. With the laboratory, commercial laboratories, which has the greatest capacity with over 23,000 tests per day, they have to send their tests out of county, in many cases out of state. So that takes about 3 to 7 days. So that's, again, the platforms we have available to us, the testing capacity, and the turnaround time for testing.
Yeah, Dr. Wooten, yeah, and that was an excellent report that you gave. Is there something being worked on to get those test results faster? Because that's going to be really helpful.
Well, I mean, the turnaround time is as fast as it can be. One run in our public health laboratory is within that 24-hour period of time. There is a rapid test that's now being disseminated by Abbott. It's called the Abbott Now. Once those, and that's within several minutes. So once that test is more readily available, individuals will know faster what their test results are. But this is the capacity that we have within the region at this time. In the coming weeks, we should be able to have the Abbott Now. I know that some hospitals are bringing that on board, and we are looking at it doing the same in our public health lab.
Good, that's good news. My second question has to do with the PPEs, the personal protective equipment. Could you please give us an update on that? And we heard recently some testimony from some of our workers on that. So from the hospital standpoint, from those that are on the front lines, doctors, nurses, and our employees that are on the front lines, can you give us an update and the shortages, what we're still trying to get in terms of the masks, the gowns, all the protective equipment, please?
So I will start out, and then I will, it will just be a tag team response. First of all, I'd like to commend all of our healthcare workers within the County of San Diego and for everything that they're doing to keep their patients and clients safe and also to keep our community safe. COVID-19 is, and we've sent this information out to our hospitals, droplet transmission. It is spread through droplet transmission. And currently the recommendation, not only from WHO, but CDC, and because of the situation that we're in, even from Cal OSHA, if you are not performing an aerosolized procedure, like obtaining a nasal pharyngeal or oropharyngeal or induced sputum, using a surgical mask is adequate. N95 masks should be utilized when you are performing those aerosolized procedures. So, and that's what that's the recommendation we've given to our local healthcare community, and that's not just San Diego, that's across the state and across the nation. In terms of the supplies, I will ask Rob Seals, who's our chief for Public Health Preparedness and Response Branch, and also the director of our Medical Operations Center, to provide an update on requests and capacity.
Good morning. Today, we are still receiving a tremendous amount of resource requests from all healthcare entities and non-healthcare entities. We are being very judicial on reviewing all of these requests, and the priority remains for hospitals, clinics that are treating COVID-19 patients, as well as our first responders who are transporting the patients, and our focus of long-term skilled facilities as well as skilled nursing facilities, and getting them what they need to protect a very vulnerable population. We, to date, since approximately March 11th, we have processed over 1.7 million items of personal protective equipment out to the region for the response. For the County of San Diego employees, we're working very closely with HR departments, and they've identified 8,231 employees, and we've delivered 17,532 face coverings, 91,350 gloves. In addition to, like Dr. Wooden just said, all the healthcare workers within the county that may be doing something that produces an aerolized response. We are making sure that they have fit tested N95 respirators, as well as simple surgical masks, face shields, goggles, gowns, and gloves. We are at a point now that we are critically low on the face shields and goggles, as well as gowns. I am cautiously optimistic about our number of simple surgical masks. But again, these simple surgical masks for healthcare workers that are doing a procedure that may cause an aerolized response, we also need a face shield. We also need to protect the eyes. So we are working diligently with private industry as well as all of our county our public libraries, and using their 3D printers to produce, mass produce the structure at which a FDA approved clear panel can be affixed to, so that they can have the face shields. And then some decontamination procedures based on CDC and California Department of Public Health recommendations on how to reuse those. So we are doing absolutely everything we can. We continue to request resources from the state and the federal government through the state. There is a serious shortage in the nation on ventilators, face masks, and gowns, and N95 respirators. So we are diligently working through all requests, and we have our priority that I listed before. I hope that answers your question.
It does, Rob. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Wooten. My last question, I've received questions about the cruise ships. So could you please give us an update on the status of the cruise ships? Who's embarking where, or are they? Has it stopped? Please give the public an update on the status of the cruise ships.
Thank you for that question, Supervisor Jacob. I can tell you that there are two cruise ships that we are working with that are currently embarked, and that's the Celebrity Eclipse and the Disney Wonder. And there are daily meetings that Dr. McDonald convenes, and today will be the first of weekly meetings that will also include myself and Jeff Toney. CDC issued a guidance just this past weekend regarding cruise ships and disembarkation of individuals can no longer now travel on commercial airplanes. They have to travel, if there are COVID-19 cases on the cruise ship, they have to travel via private transportation or planes. So, and now we also require, if there's a change in, as a cruise ship comes to San Diego, because there are several others lurking out there, they have to provide us a plan within 96 hours before coming to San Diego, and then that plan has to be approved. So we are working with the cruise ships, and we will have an updated report this afternoon at the 2:30 press briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wooten. Just a comment, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I just want to highly commend Helen, our CAO, and the entire management team that have been a part of the management of this incredible crisis that we're in. All of you, and down to every county employee and those on the front lines, have just done an incredible job. And I truly believe that the communications coming out of the county have also been excellent. And I commend our chairman, Greg Cox, and Supervisor Fletcher for the time that you're spending day to day in the press conferences and doing just a phenomenal job on our behalf. And I know the rest of us are watching and listening and asking questions as we should be, and keeping in touch with our constituents. But it's my opinion in this process that San Diego County is not only well positioned financially to handle this crisis, but with not just finances, but with the personnel, the people who are in charge at the county. So continuing on, looking ahead, I think we're also well positioned for that. Some of what we're seeing with the PPEs, the personal protective equipment, is beyond our control, but I think we need to continue to work aggressively, making the requests from the state and the feds what we need, what our hospitals need. all of our healthcare providers. Just a big shout out to everybody that's involved with that. So if it's appropriate, I'll put a motion on the floor to approve the Chief Administrative Officer's recommendation on item number 4.
I have a motion. Supervisor Desmond,
I'll second the motion.
did you have some additional comments you wanted to make?
Well, and I mean, I'd like to echo Supervisor Jacobs' comments, particularly concerning our personnel and our staff that are doing a fantastic job. All the employees at the county, you know, I don't want to repeat what she said, but, you know, I think it's worth repeating. You know, Helen and Don at the Incident Command control there, the entire EOC, Dr. Wooten, Dr. McDonald, Dr. Nick, you know, Nick Mascione, all the presenters today. And then to you, Supervisor Cox and Fletcher, for the amount of time that you put in for the effort here for the communications of the task force. And again, for all the employees that are doing the day-to-day operations here as well, you know, we've got storms coming, a lot of rain coming. There's people out handling the roads and things like that. And I also want to thank all the past boards for putting, you know, in place and keeping strong reserves here at the county. That everybody's pulling their own weight and plus and doing a fantastic job at the county. And I know we're going to come out of this better for it. And I just want to thank everyone who's involved at the county in the fight of this pandemic. So thank you very much.
Let me ask the clerk of the board if we have some additional commentators, phone-ins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have one additional caller that has called in and would like to comment on this item.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. We'd like to invite the member of the public with last 4 digits of your phone number, 2895. Again, 2895. If you can please state your first and last name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Hi there, you may proceed.
Hello, my name is Carlos Torres, and I believe that our youth and children should be more exposed and informed and have more availability for jobs and parks and rec activities. So the problem that I have is that during these times is very delicate and crucial times for unemployment, and it's also at its peak. In addition, all parks and recs are closed, and as a result, our youth have much more time available in their hands, which, unfortunately, some of our youth take that time to have negative impacts in their lives and in themselves. A solution that
It looks like our caller just dropped off the call, so we will let you know if he rejoins. Chairman Cox.
Okay, are there any other calls?
There are no other callers at this time.
Okay. Well, I know we have a motion by Supervisor Jacob and second by Vice Chair Desmond. I would just add my comments to my colleagues in regards to thanking the staff for a very comprehensive report. I mean, it's even in spite of all the things that we have going on, the County of San Diego continues to function. We provide all the vital services that we normally would do. And obviously we're doing a lot of other services that I don't think we ever would have imagined we'd be involved with. Our public health department has had a quick and decisive response to the crisis with support from an incredible team at the Emergency Operations Center. And I truly appreciate and I'm incredibly proud of the work being done by our county staff, led by our fearless Chief Administrative Officer, Helen Robbins-Meyer. You all jumped into action, fulfilling roles that you didn't know that you'd have, and certainly in the days leading up to this. And it's because of that that we can meet the critical demands that emerge each day while planning for the future health of our region. I know we're going to get through this. We will. And we've got so many capable hands out there and county staff that are working around the clock to make sure that we do get through this in a very orderly and hopefully expeditious manner. I would just add one additional comment, and that is if for the youth in this community and for seniors and anybody else in this community, I would encourage you to get on the county's Live Well at Home webpage. And there's all sorts of activities and information that we would share with you, things you can do and things you can get involved with while you are socially isolating yourself, or at least physically isolating yourself. We don't want you to be socially isolated. There's a lot of tools and mechanisms that are out there. We encourage you to take the full advantage of all those technological improvements we have to stay connected, but at the same time, maintaining that social distancing. I think the numbers we've seen over the last few days are certainly encouraging, and I think it's frankly because of the social distancing, the covering your face, the great job that is being done by our essential workers in grocery stores and gas stations, and convenience stores and drug stores. I mean, this is truly a team effort, and I am so proud not only of our county staff, but also the citizens of San Diego County for the job that they've been doing, realizing that we all have to pull together to get through this. And as I said before, we will get through this. Are there any other comments? If not, we have a motion by
Mr. Chairman, this is Helen. I'd like to just say one thing. I do understand the anxiety that's out there with our workforce. And so I just want to remind them that we have a lot of resources online that they can go to help with that, in addition to our employee assistance program. So believe me, I understand where they're coming from. I hear that loudly, and I take that very seriously. And I appreciate hearing from Amanda and Crystal, and of course, David Garcias. And we will continue to do everything we can to make sure that we're keeping our employees as safe as possible. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Okay, we do have a motion by Supervisor Jacob, seconded by Vice Chairman Desmond. If there's no further discussion, would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you. Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Okay, it's my understanding we still have 8 or 9 additional public communication speakers. So would the clerk go ahead and read those public comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The sixth non-agenda comment is from Anna Smith that reads, I'm writing in support of the statement and demands in this document, and she provided a link to that document. People have lost their jobs, and in turn, they have also lost health care insurance. We need all the help we can get. The next comment is from Zachary Bowersock that reads, I'm writing in support of this statement and demands in this document. Anything that less than canceling rent only delays eviction. The next comment is from Regina P. I am left without a job and there's no further notice when the restaurant will be reopened. Have a negative in bank account and in debt. Can't even think about the rent now, unfortunately. Next comment is from Brooke Schuler. Hello, house all of the homeless in hotels to prevent the spread of COVID-19 among the extremely vulnerable from contracting the deadly virus. How can the homeless population shelter in place without a shelter to go? Allot the proper funds to this immediately to see our curve flatten. Cancel all rents and mortgages now. Do not defer the debt. We can't afford to pay more. Our jobs were canceled. Cancel the rents and mortgages now. Thank you. Next one is from Eric McGill. He says, hi, my name is Eric McGill and I live in an unincorporated part of the county near Vista. I want to join the call that the county go the extra mile on this issue and place an immediate cancellation, not referral, of rent charges during the ongoing coronavirus crisis. Rent referral will simply push off rent collection to the future, meaning many renters will suddenly have to come up with thousands of dollars during a time when many people have lost their jobs. Support renters. The next comment is from McKenna Anello. I would like to demand that the Board of Supervisors support cancellation of rent or mortgages with no debt accumulation, eminent domain over empty houses to shelter the houseless, and no utility shutoffs. Next one is from Anzie Adams. I ask that the San Diego County Board of Supervisors take action on the following. Support the statewide call to cancel all rents, mortgages with no accumulation of debt, no shutoff of utilities, no accumulation of debt, use of eminent domain to house the homeless or healthcare workers, including the undocumented and victims of domestic violence, a public board to provide immediate economic relief to undocumented workers in the county. Next comment is from Kelsey Gans. As a native of San Diego, I demand that my Board of Supervisors support cancellation of rents, mortgages with no debt accumulation, eminent domain over empty houses to shelter the houseless, and no utility shutoffs. I also demand $30 per hour pay for all essential employees for the duration of the shelter-at-home order. I demand protective gear to be provided for said employees or employers shall be charged for their endangerment. The last comment is from Melissa Sanger. No one even knows about the meeting today, or else a lot more people would be commenting. I just found out we need to be able to skip rent and not pay for about 3 months. No evictions is not enough. Homeless need hotel rooms and food. That concludes non-agenda public comment, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. We've completed all the items on today's agenda. Before we adjourn, I do have one adjournment in memory that I would like to read at this time. And I would ask my colleagues to adjourn today's meeting in honor of William Enright, a respected Superior Court judge who spent nearly 30 years on the bench. He passed away March 7th at the age of 94. Mr. Enright was born in New York and enlisted in the Navy at the age of 17. He joined an officer training program and was eventually assigned to a carrier escort group. At war's end, in August 1945, he became a part of the force that occupied Japan. After the war, he got a bachelor's degree in philosophy at Dartmouth College and went to Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. His first job after graduation was in San Diego as a deputy district attorney, starting in 1951. He was also a criminal defense attorney before becoming a judge, building a reputation as a formidable trial lawyer. He helped start San Diego chapters of a national group that mentors young lawyers on ethics, civility, and legal skills. The largest of the local chapters is named after him, and so is the main conference room at the U.S. District Court downtown. Enright retired in 2000 after presiding over an estimated 300 criminal and civil trials. In his honor, the flags at the federal court complex downtown were flown at half staff after his passing. Mr. Enright is survived by a son, Kevin Enright, a San Diego Superior Court judge, and daughters Kimberly and Carrie. Judge William Enright was a giant of our local legal profession, and he will be sorely missed. With that, we are going to adjourn to closed session. If there's any reportable items out of closed session, the county council will report that online. And if there's nothing else to deal with before us today, our next meeting, the Board of Supervisors, will be on Tuesday, April 21st at 9 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.